Cheeseheads. Get on your feet. It's Curd and Long. Hosted by Sparky, Fifer, and Ryan Horvat.
Welcome in another edition of Curd and Long. Steve Sparky Fifer, like you heard, from 1250 AM The Fan. He is Ryan Horvat over there. Follow him on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. BetMGM tonight. Follow me at Sparky Radio. We're going to start off first with Ryan's thoughts on Packers and Rams. Then we'll get to Matt Schneidman's piece in The Athletic. He has predictions for the rest of this year and the offseason. So we'll get into that and see if Ryan agrees or disagrees. I'll tell you my thoughts too. A couple of things before we do that, though. Number one, just a reminder, Toy Drive for Children's Wisconsin is coming up November 27th through December 1st. If you go to 1250amthefan.com right now, you can start donating online if you like. If you want to make a financial donation, whatever the case may be, right there on the front page of 1250amthefan.com, there's a Toy Drive link. You just click through to make your donation, and you can donate online. Also on there is a do not donate list as far as things they don't want to take. And if you donate it, they're essentially going to take it back and exchange it for something that they do want. It's like Nerf guns and stuff like that. They don't want being, Nerf guns, bullets being flown around the inside of a hospital and so forth. So make sure you go on there and you buy the appropriate things. It cannot be used. It has to be new. November 27th through December 1st, Blades Farm and Fleet in Oak Creek. Out there each day. I will be every minute of every day, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Come say hi. Come keep me company. Don't let me be lonely and bring toys. The second thing, Ryan Horvat, I had an experience today that I've never had in radio in my entire career. I've been doing radio since 1994. I've never, ever, ever had this happen to me. The White House called. The White House communications team called, wanting to know if I had interest in interviewing Desmond Howard today. Sure. Why, you ask, would this be? Because they want him in the local markets in Wisconsin promoting this roundtable they're doing about college football players and their rights. And they're having a roundtable apparently at the White House today. So at about 2:25 this afternoon, I'm going to interview Desmond Howard. And a friend of mine said, "Are you sure it's real?" No, I'm not sure it's real. I have no idea. I don't know why you would lie and be fake about all of this nonsense. They didn't call me per se. They essentially left a voicemail at the radio station trying to see if one of the stations would be interested in interviewing them. So I called back, and sure enough, I was like, okay, here we go. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm pretty excited though. Desmond Howard, 225. So if I get it, if it actually happens, I'll post it later tonight. It'll be on the 1250 AM, thefan.com website, on the Odyssey app as well. So make sure to look for it.
Can you, really quick on that, can you do me a favor? Can you ask him why they are ruining College Game Day? And can you also ask Desmond what the hell this was?
I don't think. What is that?
Well, his name's Michael Penix.
Oh, the Washington quarterback, yeah.
For some reason, Des started a big Penix energy chant on College Game Day the other day. I had to explain to my son. We had to have an early birds and the bees talk because of Desmond Howard. Not pronunciate the name right, man.
Oh, yeah, I don't understand.
I still like College Game Day, but people really hate McAfee on there, man. Have you seen the backlash so much that he had to see college football? That's what I'm saying, Spark. There's a different type of audience. You know what I mean? We don't like these casuals coming over to our territory, these NFL guys. College football is so much different. That's why I always like doing the college football show with Don and the professor, Dan Underberg, because
Don would chill us. Yeah.
But I mean, even in Wisconsin, man, even in Milwaukee, I'd want to talk Badgers. We'd get no calls. The minute we would talk Aaron Rodgers, the phones would blow up. So it's just a different type of audience, man. And we don't like the casuals, but that's awesome. That's crazy. Let me know if it actually goes down. The White House, that's interesting. At least that's so crazy. I would be like, it's like when Jake Taylor gets the call from the Indians, or it's like when Lou gets the call to manage the Indians and he's working at a Home Depot.
Right.
I got another guy on the other line with some auto parts. Yes. I got to get back to you. Jake Taylor's in Mexico. Is that you, Tolbert? Getting a call from the White House, I'd be like, hold on, what's going on? But that's awesome, man. I can't wait to hear it.
So hopefully it works out. Okay, Ryan Horvat. I did the podcast solo on Monday. Everybody's heard my thoughts on the Kurt and Long podcast on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app. Let's hear your thoughts on the Packers finally getting a win, and this time beating the Rams with a quarterback they cut in Brett Rippon after the game. So there you go. Instead, they're bringing in Carson Wentz to be the quarterback for Matt Stafford instead of Brett Rippon. So the Packers beating you got you. So congratulations to the Rippons. Okay, Horvat, go ahead.
All right, you could clip this because I know exactly what the Rams are doing with Carson Wentz. So you know how Nick Saban always takes some guy that's like down on his luck? Because Alabama needs a new OC every 2 to 3 years. Because if you call plays for Bama for a couple of years, you're going to get another head coaching gig. So we've seen this with Lane. We've seen it with guys like Sark, that were maybe like partying with the co-eds a little bit too much or doing God knows what, or we're just like, down on their luck. Like I said, we'll just say, I call it the Nick Saban rehab program, right now. I mean, we saw with Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's back in the NFL even. We'll see what he does with Tommy Rees. Tommy Rees has actually been calling a good game the last couple of weeks. But that's what the Rams are doing with quarterbacks now. Sean McVay's the new quarterback whisperer. They did it with Baker Mayfield last year, the final couple weeks of the season.
Right.
Wow, he's the best starting quarterback in the NFC South by default, maybe. But yeah, it's the quarterback rehab program, and now in comes Carson Wentz. If McVay finds a way to get anything out of Carson Wentz, then he's the GOAT, man, because Carson Wentz has not been good in many, many years. He's also, let's be honest, I mean, I've never been in the locker room with Carson Wentz, but it really seems like his teammates don't like him a whole lot.
Agreed.
Like, they loved Nick Foles in Philadelphia.
Yep.
And then here in DC, Heineke can't play. He's no good. But when he went into that huddle, guys bought in. I don't think guys like Carson Wentz all that much. So we'll see. But all right. So sucks our schedules didn't work out on Monday because you would have got a positive Horvat because, any win's a win. I go back and forth with it a little bit, though, now at 3-5, because this team's not going to the playoffs, in my opinion. They're not going to beat good teams. I think they lose this week. But, like a win feels good. And with a young team, like what I like to see in that locker room was even a guy like Jair, who it's like, man, does he even care anymore? Is he a positive influence on these young guys in the locker room? He was excited. Guys were hugging. LaFleur looked like he wanted to coach this young team again. That locker room celebration was fun. And they needed that. Jordan Love needs that. I'm not all the way out on Jordan Love, but at the same time, it's like, damn, you might be messing up our draft pick. We might not get a Marvin Harrison or a Drake May or a Caleb Williams if we keep winning these stupid games. But, you're 3-5 now. If you're a bettor, the Packers are 4-4 against the spread. They covered in this game for me. I bet them again because they were going against Brett Rippon, Wisconsin. And let's start with the Packers on the offensive side of the ball. I want to get to my notes here because I was excited to do the show on Monday. Again, we didn't match up. So first half, I wanted to jump through a window. Second half, that was the Matt LaFleur offense that I wanted to see. They finally used Aaron Jones. I cashed in on all my props. He had 20 carries, 73 rushing yards, and a touchdown. You had a great tweet, Sparky. You're like, oh, is this easy? You just get Aaron Jones the football and everything's much better. Well, yeah, and it also helps that you're playing the Rams defense, but it is what it is. You can only play the competition in front of you. Get Aaron Jones the football. Jordan Love had a much better second half. The counting stats look pretty good. 19-25, 224 yards. Luke Musgrave finally got going. It helps that he wasn't concussed in the game. He got to play all 4 quarters. 51 receiving yards, first career touchdown. Brett Rippon, the defense, I thought the defense played pretty good, obviously. Like if you look at the box score, Brett Rippon, 13 for 28, just 130 total yards, threw an interception, fumbled twice. One of those you get back. Cooper Kupp was targeted 7 times and only had 2 catches for 48 yards. You shut down one of the best, if not the best wide receiver in the league. The only thing I didn't love about the defense, I thought this was going to be a good, let's rack up the sacks matchup. I believe, Rashawn Gary to have 2 to 3 sacks in this game. And they only had 1 sack against that offensive line, but they did limit them in English to just a 46.4 completion rate through the air, 68 total yards rushing the ball. So you shut down the run. And you did that even though Quay, Rudy Ford, Darnell Savage, and Kenny Clark all left the game due to injury or didn't play in the game. And shout out to Anthony Johnson Jr., who's a 7th-round pick out of Iowa State, got his first start with Rudy Ford being out of the lineup and had that big clutch interception in the 4th quarter, which put the Packers in place for that field goal to make it a 2-possession game. So saw some good. would have liked to maybe see some more sacks in the game because that Rams offensive line's baloney, as my grandfather would have said. But good win, man, and a good win for a young team. So I'll be positive about it.
Carrington Valentine played a hell of a game. Now we'll see if he can do this again this upcoming week against the Steelers and Kenny Pickett. But he played really well. And we had Jacob Morley on the podcast. It ended up being Sunday night and then was there Monday morning, kind of like a post-game podcast. And Jacob Morley from Backer Report was saying, again, in the preseason, he looked really good. And then he came in spurts during the regular season. But it's different when you have a full week to prepare to know you're the starter, right? And everybody says, oh, always prepared like to start and so forth. Okay, that's one thing. But to actually know, right? So now he can really get in on the film and everything else, knowing, hey, look, I'm starting. I got to be ready to go. And he had a hell of a game. The finger wag that he had during the game that I thought for sure would be a taunting call that didn't happen. He played really well. Brooks played really well. Wooten played really well. The defensive lineman. These young guys, McDuffie, even though I'm not a big McDuffie guy, but for that game, he did well. He came up and played the run really well. There were a lot of positives, and most of them were from the young guys on this defense, more so than anything else. And Horvat, I predicted when we were talking about what we were confident in, you said Gary, I said Jair Alexander interception. He didn't get an interception, but he played a hell of a lot better than he's played during the rest of the season so far. And maybe that's because he's getting healthier.
And he was getting called out a little bit. And I think he knows that, like, he kind of made an ass out of himself because the PR team talked with him. Also, like, to go back, defend Jair a little bit, like, I get it. Like you said, man, he hasn't really lost in Green Bay other than that rookie year.
Right.
So, he was probably just a little frustrated, didn't want to get himself in any trouble. So he was just like, giving one-word answers. We've all been there. If you're a competitor, you know how that goes. Nobody wants to lose. But for sure, man, and that's what I wanted to see, And Jair kind of gave his thing, like the run the table thing. Hey, we're going to win out. And now they've won one game. I don't think they're going to win out. The last time you beat the Steelers, I think in Pittsburgh, Bart Starr was your starting quarterback. Is that a real fact?
That's real. Yep.
Yeah, I'm betting the Steelers this week, man. Hate to be Mr. Negative there, but I think the Steelers aren't even a good team, Spark. They just keep winning games because Mike Tomlin's so damn good. But yeah, loved everything I saw from a young team on Sunday. Even, granted, it was against Brett Rippon, Wisconsin, and the Rams that are all beat up. A makeshift offensive line, but still, a win's a win in the National Football League.
Right. You get to start Schneidman, and then he gets hurt, and Rasheed Walker gets thrown back in there in the second half, and he actually played okay. Ryan, he gets to play in that game. Sean Ryan gets to play because running was questionable, and that was that first touchdown drive for the Packers. Dude, he was moving people backwards in the run game, something Runyon does not do. And then Runyon's like, okay, I'm good. And then out goes Ryan, and in comes Runyon again. Ryan should be the starting right guard, period. I'm done with Runyon Jr. It's been fun. You're going to the bench. You can watch. And Yosh Nijman was back this week. The week before that was foot, whatever. If Nijman's healthy enough to play, he's your starting left tackle the rest of the year. I'm done dealing with Rasheed Walker for the rest of the year because now it's got to be, listen, a running back is healthy. We have to protect and run block well. And if we do that, we're off to the races and everything is good. That one run to the left side was Jaden Reed that they had, right? And you have Myers pulling. He gets out, throws a great block. You have Christian Watson with a great seal block. That, and then DeGuara with the great block over there, and it opens it up, and they actually execute a damn play correctly, and Reed goes for 12 or 15 yards down the left sideline. That's the type of stuff that they have not done a majority of the year. Normally, it would be Myers or DeGuara would miss the block, Reed would get crushed, it would be a 1-yard gain, and that would be the end of it. Very rarely have we seen them actually execute run plays where everybody does their job and they get a chunk play out of it, out of the backfield. And that is some of the stuff where I think I get excited that maybe these guys are starting to figure it out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's the thing, like, now the rest of the way, you're not going to be able to use these excuses. This is a young football team because it's unfair as it is. Once you get to, week 8, week 9, you're not a young football team, even if it is a bunch of rookies. You know what I mean? Like, Jaden Reed is really technically he is a rookie, but that's what guys say. Like, now you got to be caught up. And now here's where we figure out if you could play or not. Because it's not like it's the NBA. You know what I mean? Like in the NBA, maybe it's going to take like Wemby some time. That's a bad example. It's not going to take him time to develop. You know what? He's the real deal right now. But maybe like if you're a Scoot Henderson guy, you're like, oh, we could pump the brakes. Jaden Ivey in Detroit doesn't look very good right now. In fact, he's out of the lineup, you know? And so you could be like, okay, well, he'll figure it out because we've seen that. But in the NFL, you don't really have time to figure it out, because you're only playing, man, these guys are out of the league by like 27, 28. I mean, not everybody's Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers playing until they're 38, 39 years old. So, you got to start performing. And especially with a young team like this, because I don't want to go through a rebuild for the next 4 to 5 years. And I know we like to laugh at the Bears, but man, they got a lot of money to spend and they're kind of doing things smartly. I think like maybe you overpaid for Sweat, but he's a beast. I like him more than I like Chase Young. And you have those 2 draft picks that are going to be in the top 10. You know what I mean? And then Detroit.
I think you're a closet Bears fan. Do you just want to admit here on the podcast that you kind of root for the Bears a little bit? Since the beginning of the year, Justin Fields and the Bears, and here we go, yada, yada, yada. That fell off. He hasn't been very good. And now we're talking about, hey, watch out for the Bears next year. Who cares? Who cares about the Bears? Nobody cares about the Bears.
I'm talking about like the future of this team. Like Green Bay's dominated the NFC North. But yeah, you should be worried about the Bears because they could get Drake May or Caleb Williams and then finally have their quarterback and turn that thing around. The Bengals were always a joke. Now they have Joe Burrow. They're no longer a joke. I remember I was having a conversation with Bill Michaels when they drafted Joe Burrow because he's from Cincinnati.
Yep.
And he's like, oh, it'll be like an Andy Dalton situation. You win 11, 12 games and you get bounced in the first round of the playoffs. And I was like, no, Bill, I don't know about that, man. Like Joe Burrow is different. Like all it takes is a quarterback. Green Bay, we've always had good luck. Kind of. Like we had Bart. I wasn't around for that. I just get clippings of it. I was around for Brett. And then Aaron, but you're not guaranteed that. We don't know if Jordan Love's any good, and we don't know if the next guy will be. Well, what if Jordan Love got hurt and we actually had to see Sean Clifford start an NFL football game? Like we're one injury away from that being a thing. So yeah, Chicago's set up for success, man. They got a crap load of money and 2 first-round picks. They're going to be in the top 10. Minnesota, dude, even without Kirk Cousins, they found a way to win that game with Dobbs. Defense is playing better. I don't know that it's going to be a long rebuild for Minnesota. I mean, I hate them. I don't think they're ever going to win a Super Bowl, but Kevin O'Connell's a pretty damn good coach, and Jordan Addison's really good. Maybe they convince Justin Jefferson to stay. Maybe they get their quarterback. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you got to figure out who could play. That was my point. I wasn't trying to hype up the Bears. I'm betting against the Bears tomorrow night, baby. Carolina Panthers, plus 3.5. They're winning that game outright. In what world are the Bears a 3.5-point favorite?
Not with Badgett at quarterback, at least. That's for sure. Okay, so let's talk about the next segment. We're going to do that coming up next. Matt Schneidman had his predictions for the year, the second half of the year in the offseason for the Green Bay Packers, the Packer beat writer from The Athletic. We'll do that coming up next. All right, let's talk about Matt Schneidman's piece here in The Athletic. He did a piece, kind of predictions. He may get them right. He may get them wrong. Who knows? But I think it was something fun to do on the Kurt and Long podcast. You can download on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app, you can also check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page. First prediction from Matt Schneidman: Jordan Love earns a contract extension at the end of the year. And I will just read a little bit of it because I don't want to give it all away. You can go read it yourself and take from it what you want. But he says Love looked better as a whole than he's been in last Sunday's victory over the Rams, making a couple of big throws in the second half to help the Packers win. Green Bay's second half schedule is tougher than what it's in the rearview mirror, but as the youth around him continues getting more experience, Love should play much better, well enough even that the Packers won't be in a position to draft a top quarterback in April and instead try to sign Love to a cheap, relatively speaking, long-term extension. I've been saying the same thing. 15 to 20 million is what I think 3 years. Extension gives him 4 years, then under contract with the Packers, and see what happens. Are you with that prediction or against that prediction, Ryan Horvat?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what happens, but it's not what I want. I guess that is what I want. Like they win some games, miss out on the playoffs, but figure out he's the guy. Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. I want to see some more though. Like,
sure. Yeah.
I don't care about one half against the Rams depleted secondary. That doesn't, I won't like if he goes back and plays like crap against the Steelers, and against Minnesota and against Detroit in the rematch, it's going to be hard for me to want him back, to be honest with you. But I do think this is what ends up happening. They'll win 6-7 games, too many to get a top pick, to get one of those top guys. And so, yeah, you'll have to build around Love and you'll, work out a cheap deal. I think that's what ends up happening here. But I do want to see more from Jordan Love for me to feel comfortable with that decision.
The next one is Eric Stokes never gets back his job, essentially, for the Packers this year. Now, out with a hamstring. Carrington Valentine has played well. He says Keyshawn Nixon has done enough to keep his job in the slot as well. He says the Packers must decide whether to exercise Stokes' fifth-year option this offseason. Doing so would guarantee his 2025 salary at $11.9 million, according to Over the Cap. Brad Gutekunst surely won't do that with only about one full season of worthwhile play from Stokes under his belt through his first 3 years in the league. So have we seen the last of Eric Stokes, Ryan Horvat?
Yeah, unfortunately, maybe. How are you going to give him that money when you don't know what he is? I mean, he was good as a rookie, and then year 2 wasn't very good and he got hurt. So I know that's unfair and he can't stay on the field right now. You know what I mean? And when's he going to be fully healthy? Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think that it's crazy that you already have to make that decision. I feel like we just got him. He just came into the league. We barely have seen him on the field. Yep, there's another one added to the Goody Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
So essentially, what'll have to happen is he'll have to have an amazing year next year in order for the Packers to give him a deal past next year. And he'll have to earn that spot opposite Jair Alexander, because Rasul Douglas is gone, obviously. So it's going to be Valentine and him probably for that corner spot, unless they go draft another corner. Then it could be a 3-way battle for that spot.
Well, we know he'll ball out then. His history says he'll have 6 interceptions. The Packers will pay him, and then he'll be no good. We've seen this granted at different positions, but Nick Perry had 13 sacks, and then didn't combine for 13 after he got the bag. You know what I mean? In my opinion, I think they chose the wrong corners a long time ago. I would have chose Micah Hyde. I would have chose Casey Hayward. Instead, they kept bringing back Tremont. No knock on Tremont, but Casey Hayward went on to lead the league in interceptions the next season. His only issue in Green Bay was he was getting concussed every other week. But I was always a Hayward guy, more than Shields. I always liked Micah Hyde. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what ends up happening, unfortunately, for Stokes. But if he balls out next year, then they'll have to keep him.
Yeah.
Good thing for him is he'll have one more year. Yeah, good.
Next one, left tackle will be the biggest draft need. And I totally agree with this one. Rasheed Walker, 7th round pick. He hasn't been that guy as of yet. They clearly don't trust him if they were starting Rasheed Walker in front of him anyhow. Then he says Packers may not lose enough to be on the clock when either Penn State's Olu Fashanu or Notre Dame's Joe Alt are available. They rank 5th and 6th, respectively, on Dane Brugler's most recent top 50 big board. But Alabama's J.C. Latham or Georgia's Amarius Mims could pique Gutekunst's interest. At that point, they're valued at 10 and 19. You had made mention before of maybe you want an SEC tackle for this team kind of going forward. When we were talking about Joe Alt and Notre Dame, you said maybe SEC tackle might be a better way to go. Your thoughts on going left tackle in the first round? I've been hammering this home for weeks at left tackle as the position in the first round. So I agree.
Yeah, I like Mims a lot, but not to toot my own horn, I'm good with quarterbacks and receivers. I'm not always the best with offensive linemen, but because Joe Alt might end up being a stud, I can't get that Louisville tape out of my head. He was on his ass in that game, getting thrown around by Louisville. You know what I mean? It's I really like Mims. I don't know that there's much of a drop-off with a lot of those guys. You know what I mean? But I completely agree that if it's not Caleb Williams or Drake May or Marvin Harrison, see, Musgrave looks good, but I would love Brock Bowers. I know he's a tight end, but man, he could be a weapon. I think he's going to be Travis Kelce, Gronk, tight end. You know what I mean? Something the Packers have never had. And hell, you could have 2 of those guys. The Patriots did it for years. Aaron Hernandez, Jesus, and Gronk, and then it was Allen and Gronk. But the 2 tight end stuff really works in this league. Buffalo tried it. It just didn't look good because Dawson Knox is overrated. Then he got hurt. I would love a tackle, though. And I think that's what you need to do, especially if you're going to commit to Jordan Love. You're going to give him that money. I think you got to do that. Because, if you can't have Marvin Harrison, there's going to be really good receivers in this draft. But if it's not him, I think you could just wait until the second round, like history says that they could do. But I'm really sick of doing that. You know what I mean? Do you see the drop-off from, okay, Christian Watson's a good player and Romeo Doubs is a good player. But then you watch Jordan Addison and, you watch some of these guys, even as rookies, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. The Packers need that. And
this is the thing. Jacob Morley and I talked about this on the last podcast because we always end up talking draft at some point, him and I. And he was saying all these receivers that are probably going to be there when the Packers draft. Okay, Marvin Harrison Jr. not, but that kid Rome from Washington, the kid from Florida State, the wide receiver from Florida State that everybody likes. And he goes, we're all going to love him. We're all going to love these wide receivers. And then he's not going to take one. And he'll go, a different position and wait on wide receiver to the second round. I don't want a wide receiver in the first round. Here, I'll put it out there right now, unless it's Harrison Jr. And I don't think they're going to suck that bad to get to Harrison Jr. Outside of him, I don't want a wide receiver. I want a damn left tackle, period, end of story. If they take anything but a left tackle, I am going to be mad. I promise you, I don't care about the kid at Florida State. I don't care about the kid at Washington. I want a damn left tackle. Any one of the four listed there by Schneidman works for me.
Kid at Washington is really, really damn good, but also he plays, man, I'm not going to try to knock. He's really good. Johnny Wilson I like because he's 6'7", but he's got the drops. If they're talking about Keon Coleman, I really like him. You might be able to get him a little bit later. What I like about him is there's your kick returner, there's your punt returner, there's your gadget guy, and there's probably, like your Tyreek Hill, number 1, number 2 wide receiver. People said CeeDee Lamb was too small to be a number 1 wide receiver. He's freaking awesome. So I think Keon Coleman could be the same type of player. But no, I'm with you, man. You got to go left tackle in this draft if you're picking high, but not high enough for franchise-changing quarterback, because even if you like Jordan Love, Arizona has Kyler, but they're going to draft Caleb Williams or Drake May if they could get him. You have to. It was like when Andrew Luck was there for the Colts. I know that they thought Peyton was done, but they had to do it regardless. Even if we had Aaron Rodgers, I love Aaron Rodgers, and you could have had Caleb Williams or Drake May, I'd be like, bye, Aaron. So I don't think they'll be that bad. I think you got to go left tackle. Any of those guys are fine with me. As crazy as it sounds, though, Joe Alt probably last for me. I want one of those SEC dudes, Big 12 dudes.
All right, let's move on. Last one. This is the one I really want to see Horvat's take on, because Horvat has been madder than mad. Like, as mad as any Packer fan I come across has been Ryan Horvat the last 3 or 4 weeks while they've been losing. Just screaming bloody murder mad about how this whole thing is playing out. Now, this is the one I want to see. Now, again, the Packers have left at Pittsburgh, home against the Chargers, at Detroit, against the Chiefs, at the Giants, against the Buccaneers, at Carolina, at Minnesota, and then home against the Bears. That's the remaining schedule. Schneidman says he thinks that of those games, they beat Pittsburgh, they lose to the Chargers, they lose to the Lions, they lose to the Chiefs. So at that point, you're on a 3-game losing streak again. Then he says they beat the Giants, they beat the Bucs, they beat Carolina, they lose to Minnesota, they beat the Bears, they end up at 8-9 and miss the playoffs barely. But as he points out, who knows? Maybe they figured out a way to beat the Chargers or the Vikings and end up being 9-8 instead. If they end up 8-9 after what we just watched, I don't want to hear anything else about LaFleur going forward if he rallies this team back to 8-9. Because just 2 weeks ago, we were like, hell, they may only get 4 or 5 wins at the end of the year. If he rallies back to 8, and if he rallies back to 8 after a 3-game losing streak in the middle of this next stretch, and they still get back to 8 after that, because that's going to be, let's see, they lost 4 in a row, 1-1. So they lost 4 of 5. They win this one, they lost 4 of 6. They lose the next 3. That means they would have lost 7 of 9. Oh. And then to be able to come back and finish strong, that'd be a hell of a deal to be able to keep that team together, not have them implode from the inside out, losing all these games. So 8-9, I'm not buying it. I don't think they're that good. I don't think they get to 8 wins. Horvat, what say you?
I think 7 sounds about right to me. I agree with a lot of those wins. I think that they should beat the Giants, should beat the Bears,
should beat Carolina.
Should beat Carolina. We'll see about Minnesota. I don't think they beat the Steelers this week, though.
No idea.
Yeah, actually, I'll give my prediction now. I won't be able to I got to actually take off tomorrow night. Right. So I'm going to pick the Steelers here. Not that I think the Steelers are that much better of a football team. I think talent-wise, they're about even, man. I hate having to go there, the terrible towels. And, I bet against the Steelers every other week, and they screw me with, good teams. I don't know how good the Packers are, but they keep finding ways to win. The Steelers are a weird team where I've never quite seen anything like it. It all comes down to, can they get pressure on the quarterback? And we know Jordan Love struggles at times when he's under pressure. When the Steelers get pressure and they get home, they're a top 10 pass defense. When they don't get pressure, then they're bottom 10 defense in the league. That secondary gets picked apart.
Good stat.
So I would love Green Bay if they had a better offensive line. Do we trust the offensive line to protect Jordan Love in this game? Because if he has 3 to 4 seconds in the pocket, he's going to pick apart that defense. Or if you use more play action, or if you have him get rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds. Like, these are things that Matt LaFleur should know. This should be a big Musgrave game, dump offs across the middle, a lot of play action, Jordan Love using his legs a little bit more, and a lot of Aaron Jones in this game. And I think that's how you beat the Steelers. But you're going to have to buy Jordan Love some time in the pocket, because if he's under pressure, he's going to throw some interceptions in this game. TJ Watt's going to be doing his sack dance without his helmet, and it's going to get ugly. And I shouldn't say it's going to get ugly, because the Steelers' offense, quarters 1 through 3, one of the worst in the league, like as far as efficiency. Packers can't stop the run. Doesn't matter. The Steelers really can't run the ball, even with Najee Harris and even with Jalen Warren, because their offensive line's getting no push. I want to say they're like 29th and run block success rate. They're not getting any push. So Green Bay should be able to hold their own against the run. And then it comes down to, can you get pressure on Kenny Pickett? Because like Jordan Love, young quarterback that makes some bad decisions. What scares me is if it's a close game, Kenny Pickett doesn't lose games in the fourth quarter. Like last year, won 7 games, most of those in the fourth quarter. He's like a terrible version of Andrew Luck, because Andrew Luck would always come back in the fourth quarter and beat teams. Kenny Pickett does that, but he's just, in my opinion, not very good. And Mike Tomlin is, I got to give the coaching advantage to Mike Tomlin. I give the coaching advantage. You know what's weird, man? In Pittsburgh, they don't like Mike Tomlin. Like, some guys don't like Mike Tomlin. I listen to Filipponi every once in a while.
He hates Tomlin. He's hated Tomlin for 3 years.
Those can't be real takes that he has.
No, I'm telling you, he has been all over Tomlin for 3 years, man. He used to do weekends on CBS Sports Radio. He would drive me nuts as much as he railed on Tomlin. He can't stand that, man.
He's like Craig Counsell, which I know, sour subject for you guys.
Not talking about Counsell.
But here's what I'll say. He did. How many managers? It depends if you think being a manager is important in baseball. But like, especially the year that they go to the NLCS, I know Christian Yelich had a ridiculous season. Locane had a really good year. You had some guys. But like the way that he's used his bullpen, the last couple of years, I think has been a better example. The Brewers don't have the most talented team. No. The Cardinals had the most talented team in the NL Central. But Counsell does the most with the less. You know what I mean? And I think that's what Mike Tomlin does, man. Like last year, they had no business having a winning record. Mitch Trubisky was your week 1 starter. Yep. And they found ways to win games, and that's what they do. So that's what scares me. So I got to predict the Steelers. So that's the only thing I disagree with Schneidman on. I think they'll finish with 7 wins, which sucks because then you're in like the middle of the draft. Good because you could get your tackle. Bad because you can't get franchise-changing wide receiver or quarterback.
He is Ryan Horvat, BetMGM tonight, weeknights with Trisha Crick and Nick Ashu. I'm Steve Sparky Fifer. Coming up next, I want to get Horvat's Thursday night football predictions. Since we're recording this on Wednesday, and you're going to hear this Wednesday and Thursday, probably before the game, give you an opportunity to maybe make some money with Horvat. That's coming up next. All right, Ryan Horvat back here on Curd and Long. Download on your Odyssey app, wherever you download your favorite podcast at Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. Follow, I can talk. Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. You can follow me at Sparky Radio. He, of course, with BetMGM tonight. Me with 1250 AM, thefan.com. Ryan Horvat, thoughts Thursday night football, 2 garbage teams, the Bears and the Panthers. I have zero interest in watching this dumb game. Zero at all. I'm sure I will because my 7-year-old is a Bears fan now, so I'm sure I'll get stuck watching it. Your thoughts, Horvat?
Yeah, here's one where if I wasn't at work, man, I might even like watch this later, the condensed version, and knock it out in like 30 minutes because I have to watch every single game by principle, by law, during the NFL football season because we only get 18 weeks of this. But this one, I'm betting the Panthers. And my breakdown is the Bears, in no world should the Bears be a 3.5-point favorite over anybody. Should they be a 2-point favorite? Sure. Maybe a full field goal? Sure. But I think Carolina is going to be able to keep this game just close enough. But I also have this addiction to betting the Carolina Panthers, and they suck. They suck. As bad as Jordan Love's look this year, Bryce Young's look worse. CJ Stroud has showed me that he's an NFL quarterback. Yes. I know that you might not agree. Anthony Richardson showed me a lot more than I thought that he was going to, in the brief time that we got to see.
I wanted Stroud. I didn't want Richardson. And right now I still look correct, but go ahead.
Oh yeah. You were right though, man. I always loved Stroud, but 2 weeks ago, Bryce beat Stroud
Yep.
They beat the Texans, and he was really good under pressure. He was really good against the blitz. And then last week, he looked like crap again. But I just think against this Bears secondary, I think the Panthers might actually be able to move the ball around a little bit. Adam Thielen will probably have a big night. I always bet his receptions over. Carolina's defense is okay. I think they're going to win this game. So I'll go Panthers plus 3.5. If I had to bet the total, I'd bet the under. I do like the Thielen props. I trust the Panthers, as crazy as it sounds, a little bit more than the Bears in this spot in prime time. And Bryce has to finally, like I said about Jordan Love and this Packers team, now we're getting to week 8, week 9. He's got to start looking better out there, man, because I know he's only a rookie, but when CJ Stroud's playing the way that he is, all eyeballs are on you, and people are starting to say, Carolina may have made the wrong pick here.
Again, you go back to Manning and Leaf, where there was a debate 1-2 for both of them. And the good news for Ryan Leaf was Manning sucked so bad that first year that they were both horrible, that everybody thought they both may have overrated both quarterbacks at that point. And then obviously year 2, Manning takes a step. Leaf never does. And it's curtains for Ryan Leaf. And Manning goes on to have a Hall of Fame career, even though he's a perennial choke in the playoffs at the end of the day. So it is what it is at this point. Ryan Horvat, follow him again on Twitter at Ryan Horvat. And follow me at Sparky Radio. Thank you so much, my friend. And we will talk again next week. Packers Steelers. Could there be a 2-game winning streak to discuss? Oh, man, I will be ecstatic if they figure out a way to beat Pittsburgh. Absolutely. I don't think they will. I'm with Horvat. But if they do, I will be. I mean, just there. I do what I want. This is what I want. Before the end of the year, I want a 300-yard passing game from Jordan Love. Before the end of the year. I don't care what game it is. I don't care who it's against. It could be Carolina, that crap team. That's fine. I don't care. I just want one 300-yard game where he just puts on a clinic and everybody goes, okay, that's what we're wanting to see. I just need one of those games to kind of sell to everybody during the offseason that we're okay. I just need one. Just one, Ryan. That's all I need.
Packers haven't had a 300-yard passing game in like 3 years, dude. Even Rodgers the last 2 years. Like in the year 2, in this league where you, as a defensive back, you can't play any defense. We can't just have one guy throw for 300 yards. A Hall of Famer, back-to-back MVP, and a first-round pick, and we're begging for a 300-yard passing game. Remember a couple of years ago when every week guys were throwing for like 450?
Yeah.
Like Ryan Fitzpatrick, these no-name guys, JP Lossman. Now, like, I don't know, man. The too-high shell, I think, is ruining the league. I keep joking we should ban the 2 safeties like we banned the switch. If we want more offense in the NFL, that's the way you do it. Because none of these guys could figure it out. It took Mahomes a full year. Drake May in college couldn't figure it out. Unless you have like deep threats like Tyreek Hill. That's just the way the league goes now.
This was a fun podcast. Always like talking with my guy, Ryan Horvat. BetMGM tonight. Tailgate to kick off Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Eastern. He gets you ready for college football. You can find that on 1250 a.m. The Fan as well at 8 o'clock every Saturday. Follow me at Sparky Radio, 1250 a.m. The Fan on your Odyssey app. Best Packers coverage, best Brewers coverage, best Bucks coverage. All the interviews I do during the week are in one of those bins or just Fan on Demand. That has everything in it. Ryan, thank you so much. And we will do this again next week. Toodles!